everyone. My name is Tiao, and I work at Oracle, where I work with our machine learning and AI technologies. So I've come here from San Francisco, and I did not have the privilege of attending a French immersion school there. So I will be doing my presentation in English. But I am very excited to be here, and especially with everything that is going on this weekend. So I wanted to find out, are any of you here Formula One fans? Okay, great. Well, Oracle happens to sponsor Red Bull Racing, and we're not just a sponsor in the sense of putting our logo there, we also work with them to bring our cloud technologies to create improvements there. So one of the examples is that we have helped them run more, so I should backtrack. So Red Bull Racing does billions of simulations of their races to ensure that they can create the best race possible. And Oracle has worked with them to ensure that they can create their simulations at more simulations at a cheaper price. And so I wanted to go ahead and share a video of some of the work that they've been doing.
You have to trust people. If you don't trust them, it's never going to work. We definitely had races where I wanted to pit, they said, keep going.
To help the team, not just as individuals, then that's a lot more powerful.
The driver feeling is very important. If we get the brakes too hot, the engineers are able to see it. But the driver is the one that feels it.
There are a lot of simulations always running.
We run billions of simulations, which help us pinpoint exactly where our maximum point score is. And Oracle have allowed us to do 25% more simulations than we were able to run previously. That's invaluable.
The sport has evolved a lot in that side compared to 30, 40 years ago.
With data, we need to be moving forward and going with the modern technology, and using Oracle has been extremely powerful, really helped improve things in a very short space of time.
Okay, and so Oracle also works with Red Bull Racing in some other ways. These include working with their young drivers to have video overlays of their own races with optimal races. It includes modeling what is happening with the combustion chamber of their engine, and also improving their fan experience by providing recommendations and more personalized offers. But what I'm talking about today is more about artificial intelligence overall. And there's no shortage as to the hype and the sort of exaggerated news of what AI can do. But there is also a lot of real work and real advancements that are happening as well. So in this presentation, I want to talk with you about some of the ways that public sector, private sector, and nonprofits have all been able to use artificial intelligence to advance what they are trying to accomplish in the world, in addition to some of the problems that arise with AI and machine learning at times, so that you can also ensure that that you're kept abreast of this and it doesn't happen to you so much. Lastly, I do want to talk a little bit about what Oracle is doing in this space. But before I do that, I want to do a quick overview of terminology, just because there are so many different words that are thrown around, and I think sometimes it's a little fuzzy and hazy as to what these are. Put simply, artificial intelligence is about applying math to data to extract insights. The term artificial intelligence goes back a few decades, and it originally referred to machines that operated with human-like intelligence. And so you can think of, I think you talked about Terminator. There are other examples like the replicants from Blade Runner, HAL 9000 from Space Odyssey. Today, it is used to refer to software that interacts with the world in a manner that is similar to the way that humans behave, or in some cases it exceeds it. Machine learning, on the other hand, is a subset of AI, and it refers more specifically to algorithms that model ways in which you can get insights from data. When it comes to deep learning, this refers to neural nets that learn from a broad swath of data. And we also have data science, which encompasses all of these. And it is a discipline in the way that computer science is a discipline. And whereas computer science is involved with the building and running of computer programs, data science is about all aspects of extracting insights and knowledge from data. Now, the first example that I'm going to talk about this is a government example. This is the LA County. It has 10 million residents. I looked up Canada, and it looks like Canada has maybe about 40 million residents, so I think this can give you an idea of just how many people and how many properties are crammed into this very small space. Because the job of the LA County assessor is to determine all of the values of the properties in LA County and therefore the taxes as well. Now, this is a huge job, and in 2021, they had a roll net value of $1.76 trillion. They also have a great deal of unstructured data that goes back over 100 years. And so they embarked upon a modernization project, and they digitized over 100 million documents. Now, once those documents were digitized, they then wanted to see what kinds of insights they could extract from it, how could they improve different processes. And so they created a predictive machine learning model that would estimate the value of the single-family homes in LA County. In addition to this, they have also created a forecasting model that forecasts what their budget for the coming year is going to be, because a lot of their budget is based upon the property values and what taxes they can collect from those. Our second example is CMRI. So CMRI stands for Children's Medical Research Institute. They are based in Australia, and they conduct research into children's genetic diseases. Now, they were looking for a way to speed up their simulations, because one example of a simulation that they run is that they will introduce a mutation into a protein, and then they will see whether that mutation makes the protein weaker or stronger. In this case, they adopted a service with Oracle, and it sped the simulation time from 30 days, it brought it down to 5 days, regardless of the number of simulations that are being run. And our last example is one that is very interesting, but they would like to remain anonymous. And in this case, they have a factory this is a manufacturing company, and they have a factory that is located in a valley. And at certain times, the emissions will exceed federal limits, which is something that they do not want to do. So they also built a predictive model, and in this case, it took into account different things like topographical conditions, weather conditions, to make predictions as to when this factory needs to slow down production to avoid surpassing those federal limits. They're also trying some other innovative use cases. So they are using a computer vision service, and because they often have huge amounts of pipes that are lying around in their yard, and they wanted a way to automate counting it. And we took this a step further, and we partnered with Skydio drones at the Oracle Industry Labs to create an experiment where you can see on the left, you have the drone that is taking off. In the middle, you can see the drone that is flying towards the pipes to take images, and in the last image, you can see how our computer vision service can then detect that there are pipes in this image, and then use this for counting purposes. Now, this is a use case that is not just for manufacturing. It can be used for diverse cases like what's located on shelves in a warehouse, or the number of empty truck trailers in a lot. Anything that needs counting. But I've just spent all this time telling you about some of the interesting things that AI is helping companies do. But at the same time, it is still an emerging technology, and there are still things that organizations need to address. And so I'll go through a few of these here, and I'll start with data security and privacy. Now, I've talked about how data is foundational to AI, and So this is an issue that is not just specific to AI, it's also applicable in data management and other areas, but it is something that people should still take into account when it comes to AI. So data is foundational for AI, and it is part of the reason for why one of the reasons for why data is increasing in popularity, and it is becoming more and more important. There was an article that appeared in The Economist a while ago that talked about how data is the new oil, because it is so important these days. Now, there are different levels to the privacy of data, and so there's public data, which often the government has released certain types of data. There is proprietary data, and this is data that many businesses will hold. Often it's very important to them, and they want to keep that very secret. And then there's also legally protected data, and so this involves data that is covered by GDPR. It can involve data that is covered by medical records too. Now, these are the principles of data privacy. I'm not going to go through all of them, but as you can see, there are many. When data is hosted in the cloud, it becomes the responsibility of both the cloud provider and also the customer to ensure that these are upheld. I'll just go through two of them as an overview. The first one is transparency. So Oracle encrypts the data that it holds, and this means that you as the customer hold the keys and Oracle does not have access to it. But that also means that then it becomes your responsibility to manage the data and to be open with your customers about, or not to manage the data, but to be open about with your customers about how the data is being secured and used. With availability, this is also very important because although Oracle has made a commitment to ensuring your data privacy, it also must make the data available to you. And so Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI, is divided into different geographic regions. But within these regions, there are also fault-tolerant availability domains to support redundancy, replicated systems, and also data backup, so that data is always available when you need it. Now, Oracle supports all of these principles of data privacy, which is one less thing that you would need to worry about if you're doing AI on your data hosted by Oracle. Cybersecurity is a big topic. We hear about this very often. Gartner has identified security of machine learning systems as a strategic topic. They've also made the bold claim that this year, 30% of cybersecurity attacks will involve either data poisoning, model theft, or adversarial samples. They have also identified that many data governance efforts do not cover these areas. I'm going to go through a few best practices, but I have the caveat that this is a very big topic, and we normally have a full presentation that we give on this. If you would like to be notified when we next run this presentation, then you can take down my email address, which will be displayed on the screen later, or give me your card or something like that, and we'll let you know when we run it. But part of our best practices are that we have a 4-step approach for securing AI. Now, these best practices should be made known to your data science teams. They should be part of your centers of excellence, and they should be part of your ML ops. The first one is identifying the threats. So this is identifying your valuable artifacts. Do you have models that are proprietary and that you do not want to fall into the hands of other people or companies? Do you have data that is especially sensitive? So in this case, you'll want to run an audit and make sure that you can identify the items that are the most vulnerable for you. The second step is building the protection layers. In this case, you might want to consult with your in-house security experts and educate them about what it is that your organization is doing with your machine learning efforts. Make sure that you are limiting access to only the people who require the access to get the work done. There's detect and defend against those adversarial attacks. So run red teaming exercises. Perform penetration tests, see whether your system can block those attacks. And the last one respond, analyze, and mitigate. In this case, you will want to document everything. So make sure that you are creating run books on how to address some of these issues. Ensure that you are addressing the problems as they come up. And most of all, you'll want to create a culture around AI security at your organization. With machine learning model explainability, sometimes machine learning models are described as black boxes. The reason for this is because data will go into the machine learning model, and with some of the more complex kinds of models, something will happen inside the model, the algorithms will do their thing, and then there will be a result. And when people go to the data scientists and ask a question like, okay, so why was the result like this? Even the data scientists sometimes cannot provide an answer for that. And this becomes more of a problem, because as machine learning becomes a bigger part of our lives, as it starts to determine things like whether you are approved for a bank loan, whether the kind of diagnosis that your doctor will make, then it becomes more important that we both understand why these models are making the decisions that they are, and also that the ordinary people understand how machine learning is affecting them. So there are two kinds of explanations, and that I'll explain here. And the first one is the global explanation. And so this is a look into the into what is the overall behavior of the model. So how do the different features influence each other and and how do the weights affect the output? So this kind of global explanation that looks at how the entire model as a whole works is something that many data scientists will look at during the training phase of the machine learning lifecycle. There's another main kind of explainability called local explainability, and this one is more about specific predictions rather than the whole of the model. So this one would be a question like, why did my credit score drop 10 points? And finding the explanation for that. And this is something that is often used after the model has been trained and after it has been deployed. And people are looking for more answers into some of the specifics of the behavior. There's also machine learning bias, and there have been a lot of headlines around this. Machine learning bias happens when a machine learning model produces results that are prejudiced, and this occurs as a result of a skewed training process or data that is unbalanced. And so why does this happen? This happens because many machine learning models are trained on historical data. And in some cases, that data is not as complete as it potentially should be. An example is, let's say that you are trying to create a model that will provide recommendations for the best kind of CEO. And you take your data from a region of the world where all of the CEOs are white males. The machine learning model will likely return a result saying that the best candidates are also all white males, just because that is what it is learning from. Now, the solution for this, many people will just say, oh, make sure the data is balanced. But sometimes, like in that case, it's very difficult because that balanced data that's ready for machine learning, that's adequately trained, is not available. And so what researchers are doing right now is that when they are creating these machine learning models, they are encoding them for fairness, so that even if the models are trained on skewed data, that these machine learning models can return results that are not. In addition, this is another reason why machine learning explainability is so important, and being able to get more access into how these machines are working the way that they are. There are multiple companies that are working on ensuring that machine learning explainability is more readily available, including Oracle. And lastly, human-in-the-loop systems are still very important. So we're at the phase of machine learning where it is extremely valuable in terms of providing deeper insights and more information and more predictions into data. But it is still important to have humans as part of the system who are the ones making the decisions and overseeing what is happening. The goal of machine learning currently is to remove the drudgery and tedium of work so that humans can make the strategic decisions more easily. Now, I've just spent all this time telling you about the problems of machine learning, and there are some people who would question this and just say something like, oh, is my organization really ready for machine learning? But of course, we are at an emerging technologies conference. Everyone here cares very deeply about innovation, and we all understand that it is essential that we continue to take advantage of technology that is producing real results today. I have here, this is some information from IDC, and they questioned some leaders. I apologize for the fact that there's just the United States up there. But they questioned some leaders about what do you think will have the greatest impact on your business in 2022. And currently in 2022, it is the talent skills gap, and it is also cybersecurity threats. But in just 2 years, what these leaders worry about is gaps in digital transformation execution. The IDC has also surveyed multiple early AI adopters, and 39% have found that in the past 12 months, they have seen an improvement in customer service and customer experience efforts. 56% have seen an improvement in employee-focused productivity solutions. And that brings us to Oracle and AI. So sometimes people will say, okay, or you may not know that Oracle is in the AI space, but Oracle is a leader in the data management space. It also has many SaaS apps, over 80. And so and as I have said, data is foundational for AI. So Oracle took a look at the state of affairs, at the situation, and saw that it could still bring its reputation for security and innovation to this space. And so that is why it has created this platform for AI. Now, the bottom layer is data, because that is foundational. The top layer is applications, because that is how AI is consumed. We also divide our services into two categories: the machine learning services and the AI services. The machine learning services are services that are used for trained data scientists, so people who often have PhDs and years of experience in extracting insights from data. This is for the people who can and want to build a machine learning model, either from scratch or by using their favorite open source tools. And they want to be in charge of the entire building, training, modeling, deploying process. The top layer is designed for developers and for people who do not have that deep data science and machine learning experience, but still want to be able to use AI for their applications. All of the AI services are pre-built models. They operate where you can call the service with an API, you can pass in data, and then the service will return a result. So all of these are pre-built. Some of these are pre-trained with industry-specific data. The rest are made available so that you can custom train them. And the reason for this is because with an example like OCI anomaly detection, this will detect anomalies in your data, and you want to train it on your own data so that it understands what your own anomalies are. Now, several of these services can offer they are both custom trained already so that you can use them immediately, but if you want to further custom train them with your own organization's data to make it even more accurate, then that is an ability that is on offer. So Oracle Digital Assistant, it offers speech and text-based chatbots. OCI Language it will detect language and translate it, and it also determines the sentiment and the topic. OCI Speech is a human speech to text capability. Some people ask me if it can detect animals, and I say no, not yet, but who knows? And there's also OCI Vision, which detects images and objects and images, and then it can classify the images. It can also take documents, digitized documents, extract the text, and then classify the document type, and then also determine and also extract key information. OCI anomaly detection, I mentioned detects anomalies in time series data and especially sensor data. And OCI forecasting, it predicts time-based business metrics. We also have Oracle AI apps. So these are AI features that are applications that are embedded in our Oracle SaaS apps. Some examples of this are for finance, dynamic predictions for discounts for suppliers, so that they pay their invoices early, and your company has, or organization has more working capital. Human resources in human resources, we provide job requisition predictions about how long it may take for a job to be filled. Sales, with opportunity pipeline and how likely a deal is to close, and what are the recommended actions to bring this to closure. And lastly, I also wanted to discuss healthcare. And it looks like I'm missing a slide here, but before I play this. But in healthcare, there is a lot of room for innovation. And at Oracle, we believe that information is essential for improving healthcare. Now, we believe that doctors can diagnose patients better, that public health officials can create better public policy decisions, and that healthcare costs can be lowered. So all of that sounds great, but how can an organization really commit to that, and how can an organization say that there actually will be impact created in that area? So in some smaller areas, Oracle has been working with individual companies. I mentioned CMRI earlier. We have also worked with the UK's National Health Services, NHS, to create some models for fraud prediction to identify over $1 billion in fraudulent activity to bring down their costs. But in addition to that, Oracle has recently acquired Façonner, which is a health information company. And with them, we are partnering to revamp their Millennium EHR electronic health records platform, and to add telehealth, voice interfaces, to create one ecosystem for health records for people across countries to access, not just within silos. There's also the ability to bring in more disease-specific models and other activities that can be shared across hospitals. So to illustrate what I mean by this, there is Project Ronin, which is a clinical diagnosis company, and MD Anderson, which is a leading cancer research institute in the US, have partnered together to create models that monitor cancer patients as they're undergoing treatments. These models will be available via the Millennium platform, so that more hospitals can make use of this to improve outcomes for their patients. So this work is not going to be easy, but at the same time, it is extremely important to keep innovating and see what kinds of work we can do for the people that we are serving, whether we are nonprofits or public sector or businesses. So I wanted to close this out by playing this video that we created with CMRI to demonstrate the importance of innovating with AI.
1 in 20 kids face a birth defect or genetic disease head-on. But I'm not sad. I'm scared because I'm a unicorn. A superior. A lion.
Children's Medical Research Institute conducts basic research on genetic disease. CMRI is investing in technology that helps us to process large volume of data We use the OCI data science platform to perform our analysis. That allows us to use, for example, machine learning applications, use GPUs, etc. We want to use the OCI vision and the labeling capabilities to also analyze image from microscopes. We are using the Oracle to process several types of data. In the past, what we will do is to generate PDF documents. Now with Oracle Analytics, we can generate a report which is interactive. We are also using GPUs for other type of analysis, and for that, we use a tool from NVIDIA called Parabricks, which allows us to do some of the analysis very quickly. One of the main issues is to perform the labeling. With Oracle labeling services, we can use the service to help us. One of the principal advantages of using Oracle Cloud is the fact that we can now improve the quality of the research, because we cannot make the experiments faster. However, we can focus more on the details of the analysis. Oracle provides us with the artificial intelligence and computational platform we need to develop research to cure children's cancer.
And though my disease can steal my energy, I will fight it every day.
Thank you. So this concludes the presentation. You can feel free to contact me if you have any, if you would like access to some of the presentations and assets that we create. We also do have a few people from Oracle who would be happy to speak with you further as well, of course.
Puis on va faire une petite période de questions. So I have a few questions here. What makes you most proud about your contribution to the AI community through your role at Oracle?
So what makes me proudest? I think being able to educate people on what AI can do for them and how it can impact their organizations. So that is something that is very rewarding to me. Also being able to work for a company with a reputation for data security. So one item that I forgot to mention is that Oracle secures 24 out of 28 of the world's most systemically important financial services institutions. And that's part of the reason why we feel that we're suited for healthcare and for other industries as well.
That's great. How soon will smart cities be an integral part of the human experience?
So I think that smart cities, we're already seeing multiple cities trying to become smarter, and I think that we will continue to watch that happen. I know that there are a lot of privacy concerns with that and how much surveillance benefits humans as a whole and how much is too much and infringes on our human rights. And I think that those are some very big questions that we will continue to grapple with while still trying to improve things for people.
Yeah. Can you give us insight on how long an AI project can take? Is it realistic to have a prototype in 1, 2, 3 months? And how long to scale?
So that really depends on how you're trying to do it. The project that I showed earlier with the drone and the pipes, it took our industry innovation lab just a few hours to code it. And the reason for that is because they started with a pre-built AI service. So a lot of the work was already done, and then so they just had to do some preliminary training of some custom training to recognize the steel pipes, and then be able to encode it and call it from an application. Now, if you're talking, but there are also machine learning projects that can take months. And so it really depends on the range and the scale and the complexity of what you're trying to tackle. We always recommend starting off with a small project and something where it will be easy to show a quick win, because you'll learn so much from that experience. And also the feeling of being able to say, oh, I implemented this and I created this and brought it to life is very rewarding as you then increase in scale and complexity of your projects.
What result validity issue arrive in AI tools due to data drift?
So when a machine learning model is deployed, it isn't enough to, okay, so there's a machine learning lifecycle, and part of it involves training the model, and then once you reach a certain level of accuracy, then the model will be deployed, and then you'll monitor for it, and that monitoring should not stop because of the reason of data drift, which is the concept, because new data is constantly arriving in the world. The model that you created that is trained on that older data will not necessarily remain accurate for the new circumstances that are coming in. So it becomes very important to continue to monitor that model, to continue to refresh it with new data so that you can ensure that the results that you get continue to be accurate despite the changing world. In the same way that we also constantly have to, as people, we constantly have to learn and ensure that we can use the new technologies and benefit from them.
Our time is up.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Sherry
Right.
Tiao.
Okay.